My parents siphoned $97.50 from my emergency savings for a lavish getaway. Now, penniless, they're pleading with a lawyer to sort out the mess. They drained my $97.50 nest egg for first-class tickets and extravagant resorts. Then they mailed me a letter declaring I was a mistake. They'd sworn they'd spend the summer at home. I believed them until a bank alert showed $97.50 yanked from my backup account. Flights to Mykonos, opulent suites, and private chauffeurs, all charged to my name. Then my brother messaged my mom, not me by mistake. He never checks his statements. "Don't worry," I texted back. "Check this." I locked the account. Fraud was reported. The next morning, they pounded on my door. I opened it and saw it wasn't just theft, it was treachery, the kind that breaks you permanently. These were my parents, the same ones who claimed they couldn't afford a family barbecue, lectured me last month for ordering pizza, and sighed when I suggested a weekend getaway, saying, "This summer we're staying put." It's too much. I trusted them, truly trusted them. But then the notification hit. My phone buzzed on my nightstand. Half asleep, I saw the figure, $97.50 withdrawn from your emergency fund. My pulse raced. I opened the banking app and gaped. Every transaction was listed. First-class tickets to Mykonos, a deluxe suite with a private infinity pool, personal drivers, designer boutiques, dinners costing more than my rent, all booked with my emergency savings. They weren't supposed to touch that account without asking. I scrolled on. Luxury shops, exclusive tour, beachside spa sessions, all under my name. Then came the second stab. My brother's accidental text. He never checks his statements. "Don't worry," it clicked. They thought I'd miss it. They counted on me being too gullible, too loyal to notice. They figured I'd chalk it up to a glitch or a bank fee. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment grab, it was calculated. They banked on my silence, my devotion, my ignorance. They didn't get it. I replied curtly, "Read this." Then I moved fast. Froze the account, flagged every charge as fraud, called the bank, canceled their bookings, and cut their access to everything. The refund was processing, and their dream vacation was dead. They'd land in Greece with nowhere to stay, no car, no hotel, no suite, no ride from the airport. I didn't sleep. I sat in the dark living room, waiting for the storm to break. A loud crack came from outside, something heavy. I rushed to the window and saw my car's windshield smashed. A landscaping rock lodged in the center like a crater. My father stood there, fists tight, pacing. My mother was behind him, gesturing wildly. My sister lingered by the driveway, smirking like it was high school gossip. I opened the door. My father didn't wait. "You ungrateful little jerk, after all we've done for you, that money was ours. You gave us access. If you didn't want us to use it, you should have said so," my mother chimed in. "You humiliated us. We bragged about this trip to everyone. Do you know how embarrassing this is? You're selfish." My sister from the sidelines shouted, "Yeah, someone finally said it." I didn't reply. I glanced at my car, then at them. "Come inside," I said. "Want to talk?" "Let's talk." They stormed in, still yelling. I walked to my bedroom, shut the door, and called the police. I gave them the address, reported property damage and a possible assault, and noted the front door camera footage. The officer said they'd arrive in 10 minutes, so I stalled. Let my parents rant. Let them repeat their excuses. Let my father threaten to disown me. Let my mother sob. Let my sister mock me from the corner like a vulture. Then came a knock, the real one. When the police arrived, I pointed to the door. "The rock's still in the car and there's video. I want to file a report." They went quiet. Not until the officer led my father out, saying he needed to visit the station. Even then, my mother stood frozen. I filed the report, demanded full compensation for the windshield, and added a claim for emotional distress. The refund hit that afternoon, but the true payback was just starting. After the police took my father, the house felt eerily still. My mother sat rigid on the couch's edge, like she couldn't process it. My sister paced the hall, arms crossed, glaring between the door and me, unsure who to hate more. No one spoke for 20 minutes. Then my mother's phone rang. I overheard her in the kitchen, trying to sound calm, but her voice broke. Yes, they took him. Ethan called the cops. I don't know what he said. No, it's not what you think." I stayed silent. I didn't need to say anything. I drove to the station, gave a full statement, and handed over the doorbell footage of my father hurling the rock. I laid it out plainly. No drama, no emotion. They asked if I wanted to press charges. I said yes, not just for the damage, but for what it symbolized. That windshield was the breaking point. Later that day, I got a call. My father agreed to settle. He wired the money for the damage, plus an extra $1,000 for emotional harm. His words, not mine. Maybe he thought it'd fix things. It didn't. Back home, my mother and sister were still there. My mother wouldn't look at me. My sister shot me a venomous glare like I was the traitor. I said nothing. I went to my room and locked the door. I didn't sleep. I pulled up every financial tie I had to them. Bills, tuition payments, subscriptions, logins. I severed them all. By noon the next day, I called the university and told them I'd no longer cover my sister's tuition. My financial support was done and they'd need to sort it out with someone else. They said they'd notify her within 24 hours. I let them. Hours later, she was screaming outside my door. I didn't answer. I heard her hurl something at the wall, probably a textbook. Then she stormed off. I watched from the upstairs window as she paced the driveway, calling someone, likely my mother. 2 days later, I stopped the auto payments for my mother's prescriptions. I'd been quietly covering them because her insurance barely helped. She never asked me to. I did it because I thought it was right. I called the clinic and switched billing back to her. I pulled my card from everything. No heads up, no explanation. Let them feel the weight. This wasn't about revenge. It was about cutting them off completely. They thought they could treat me like a bank, smash my property, and act like I crossed them as if I was supposed to shrug it off. No, the betrayal cut too deep. This wasn't about a trip. It was about what that money meant. My health, my security, my fallback if things went south. They didn't care. They didn't even pause. And when I pushed back, their first move was to wreck my car and scream at me in my own home. They expected me to cave, feel guilty, and keep paying after everything. They didn't know who they were dealing with. And the best part? This was just the start. They never apologized, not once. Not for draining my emergency fund. Not for smashing my windshield. Not even for berating me in my own living room like I was an intruder. If anything, they dug in harder. Every time I checked my phone, I half expected a message. Some attempt to mend things, even a weak apology. Nothing came, no calls, no texts. My mother went quiet. My father vanished like a ghost. My sister kept posting cryptic jabs on Instagram. Family's blood, but not everyone earns it. Captions like cutting off leeches. She didn't tag me. She didn't need to. I got the hint. Then a letter arrived, a real one in an envelope. My name was scrawled in sharp, blocky letters, no return address. Inside was a typed 2-page note signed by both parents. Cold, formal. They used phrases like irreversible harm and family disgrace, accusing me of shaming them publicly, calling my actions spiteful, ungrateful, and morally bankrupt. The final line hit hardest. "We no longer see you as our son." I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I folded the letter, tucked it into the drawer with my medical files, and shut it gently. They knew I was sick. They knew why I saved that money. My condition wasn't a secret. I'd been battling a chronic autoimmune disorder for 2 years, flare-ups, hospital visits, costly meds, weeks I couldn't work. I shared everything with them, let them in on it all. They were there when I had to quit my last job. They helped me file for disability support. They knew what the fund was for, yet they drained it for a luxury escape. They didn't just rob me, they stole my safety, my peace. And when I fought back, they cast me out like trash. Days after the letter, my father left a voicemail. He wanted to talk like men. No apology. He admitted the rock was a bit much, but said I'd pushed him. Then he said something that chilled me. "You've made your point, now man up and fix this family," as if I broke it. So I did exactly what he wanted. I fixed it my way. First, I contacted the storage company. They kept antique furniture there. My mother called it heirlooms, paintings with some value. They planned to sell them when the market improved. They'd fallen behind on payments, and I'd bylaid them out like an idiot. I was still on the lease, so I canceled it. No extension, no warning. I told the manager to send the standard 2-week pickup notice. Anything left would be auctioned. I didn't tell them, let the email hit them blind. Then I tackled the kitchen loan. 3 years ago, they borrowed for a fancy kitchen remodel. Granite counters, double ovens, custom cabinets. It was absurdly expensive, and the bank needed a cosigner. I signed because family. That word feels toxic now. I called the bank, sent all the documents, vandalism, the letter, the stolen funds. After a week of back and forth, they removed me from the loan. They'd have to refinance or pay it off. Not my problem anymore. It felt good, not clean, but good. Because what they did wasn't just betrayal, it was a statement. They drew the line, crossed it, and made sure I knew my place in their world. Still, part of me hoped they'd reach out, say they screwed up. Want to fix it, but reality kept punching through. They disowned me over a vacation. They chose extravagance over loyalty. Now I'm giving them what they wanted, no more son. 2 weeks of silence. I thought they were licking their wounds. Maybe they saw the damage and felt ashamed. Maybe they hoped I'd break and crawl back. The quiet was unnerving. I expected something big, a voicemail, a dramatic text from my mother, my sister showing up to scream. Nothing. Until a call from an unknown number. "Hi, Ethan, this is Randall Porter, attorney for your parents. They've asked me to discuss some shared financial matters." I hung up before he finished. 5 minutes later, a voicemail. Same guy talking about mediation, asset disputes, and amicable solutions. They were worried things might get complicated. They'd already stolen $10,000, wrecked my car, and disowned me. Now they feared complications. The next day, my sister showed up. She used an old spare key I'd forgotten to disable, acting like she still belonged. No knock. She walked in, sipping from a mug like it was a family reunion. She said Mom wasn't eating, Dad was talking about selling the house, even dipping into his retirement. She claimed I'd started something unstoppable. I told her the key wouldn't work next time. She said fine, but slid an envelope across the counter before leaving. Inside was a handwritten will. Not legal, just my father's scrawl on yellow legal paper. One line stood out. Upon my death, Sarah and Melinda split my assets evenly. No mention of me, like I never existed. She watched me read it. No reaction, waiting for me to speak. Not shocked, are you? She said. I didn't answer. I folded the will, put it back in the envelope, and left it on the table. She was halfway out when she turned. By the way, she said, Mom's prescription got declined at the pharmacy. They said the card was rejected. She cried in front of the clerk. I left with nothing. I didn't blink. She made that choice, I said. After she left, I sat for a while, not angry, not even sad, just empty. That will didn't hurt as much as it should have. It just confirmed what I knew. They'd erased me from their family, not even in death. That night, I opened an old financial dashboard I'd forgotten about, linked to a checking account I used during the pandemic to cover their bills. It had $600 left when I stopped using it, but someone had been dipping in. Small withdrawals over weeks, $25 here, $15 there. Nothing big until I saw it. Multiple charges on a gambling site. Then more, all in my father's name. I kept scrolling. Hundreds of dollars. It didn't stop. This wasn't just about Mykonos. The trip was a cover. They weren't just reckless. They were drowning, sinking in their own chaos, too proud to admit it. They needed the trip not for a break, but for one last splurge on my dime. I'd wondered how they went from stubborn, proud people to greedy, reckless liars. Now I saw they weren't just hurting me. They were surviving. And they thought if they could paint me as the villain, I'd come back and bail them out. I wasn't that guy anymore. And they didn't see what was coming. By month's end, they were unraveling in real time. I didn't have to guess. It started small, bank alerts, odd emails, calls from creditors I hadn't heard from in years. They'd gotten careless, using old accounts tied to my name. My name popped up as a secondary contact on a credit card I didn't know existed. Another listed me as an authorized user from when I helped them recover post-2008. They thought I wouldn't notice as they tapped every connection. I did. I scrubbed everything. I called every bank, every lender, removed my name, flagged every attempt. Each time I closed a door, I pictured them behind it, knowing it was locked for good. But the big break came a week later. A call from an old family friend, Mr. Blake, who ran an auto shop where my father fixed our cars. Ethan, your dad came by last night. He wasn't sober, said things I couldn't make out, but they were ugly. He kept yelling you'd ruined everything. Then he smashed a mirror in the office and left without paying. He paused. Just thought you should know he's not okay. I thanked him and hung up. Their house of cards was collapsing. I didn't know how deep their debts ran. Didn't matter. I wasn't paying. They chose this. They'd formally cut me off. Still, part of me wanted to know how far they'd fall. Not out of spite, but because if I was walking away for good, I needed to know I wasn't leaving too soon. Then came a surprise from the hospital billing department. Years ago, I'd listed myself as my mother's emergency contact. I never updated it. They called to say her insurance lapsed and she hadn't paid for treatments. She'd been skipping appointments for weeks. When I asked if she was okay, they said they couldn't share more. I didn't call her. Didn't send money. She knew how to reach me. She just didn't. Then the final blow, a certified letter. Not from their lawyer, but from my parents. One line scrawled in marker on folded blank paper. You were a mistake. No signature, no return address. Just those 4 words. I didn't cry. I laughed a quiet, bitter chuckle because it was almost absurd how hard they tried to erase me, as if one sentence could wipe me from their history. I tucked the letter with the first one, next to the will and pharmacy receipts, my archive of what betrayal looks like in their handwriting. That night, I started a new document on my laptop called Final Ledger. I listed every payment, loan, favor, and sacrifice I'd made for them over the past decade. It took longer than I thought. At the bottom, I wrote, no repayment required, just never contact me again. Because they were right about one thing, I wasn't their son anymore. Life got quiet, not peaceful, not yet, just still like a room after a storm. No more calls, texts, passive-aggressive letters, or drama. The people who once orbited my life like constants were gone. For days, the silence was louder than their screams. I knew they wouldn't come back, not in the way people mean. I knew because they meant every word in that last letter. If you can write, you were a mistake, and send it as a legal document, there's nothing left to salvage. So I started erasing their last traces from my life. I removed my name from all shared records, backup contacts, emergency lists, changed my number, opened new accounts, canceled old subscriptions tied to their house, even dropped my dental plan, still under my father's old coverage. I wanted no ties to pull me back, no paper trail, no forgotten links. It wasn't anger anymore, it was clarity. and it came just in time. Soon after, I got messages from distant relatives, old friends, neighbors I hadn't spoken to in years. They weren't checking on me, they were gossiping. My parents had sold their house, not just sold, dumped. Below market, probably to dodge foreclosure. No moving truck, no formal goodbye. They grabbed what they could carry and vanished. One person said they saw my mother leaving with a suitcase, crying. Another heard my father shouting on the phone at night, demanding cash. No one knew where they went, not even my sister, who apparently moved in with a boyfriend 2 towns away. I didn't ask for details, I didn't care. Then came the photo. A neighbor I barely knew sent a picture taken from afar. My parents sat outside a shabby motel on the city's edge. My father hunched, staring at the ground. My mother gazing at nothing. 2 plastic bags sat on the pavement beside them. No car, no home, just a strip of concrete and whatever pride they clung to. I stared at the photo for a long time. Not because I wanted to help, but to feel something. All I felt was tired. I deleted the photo, blocked the number, made coffee, sat by the window, and thought about how strange it is to outgrow the people who raised you. Not because you're better, but because they never grew. They stayed entitled, cruel, and selfish, even when broken. I thought of all the red flags, every time they guilted me into paying their bills, answering their calls, or attending tense family dinners that felt like transactions. Every time they acted like my help was their right, not my choice. And I thought of that last letter. You were a mistake. I used to think if I did enough, gave enough, endured enough, they'd say the opposite. That they were proud, that I mattered. But some people only love you when you're useful, and the second you stop, they show their true colors. So I gave myself closure. I printed the final ledger for myself. I called it severance. Inside, I listed every debt, payment, sacrifice, and broken promise. Then I wrote the last line, "You weren't a mistake, you were the final lesson." I haven't heard from them since. But when the pain in my joints flares, reminding me why I built that emergency fund, I open that drawer where the letters sit, untouched, and remind myself I didn't lose my family. I saw them for who they were and walked away while I could. Some nights, when sleep won't come, I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen that bank alert. If I'd kept trusting them, letting them bleed me dry while smiling. Maybe they'd have planned another trip next summer, maybe Bali, something even grander, and I'd still be footing the bill like a fool. But betrayal doesn't start with $10,000 and a luxury suite. It creeps in with silence, small lies, and being called selfish for saying no. And if you let it slide enough times, people start believing the lie that you owe them always. Never again.